London's most dangerous gang aka TMD. Tottenham Mandem founded 1970s. Founding location Tottenham, North London. Years active 1970s to mid-2000s. Territory Tottenham and South Tottenham, in North London. Ethnicity links to Jamaican Yardis. 1. Membership, estimated, 100 plus. 2. Criminal activities: drug trafficking, weapon trafficking, armed robbery, kidnapping and contract killing. Allies: Broadwater Farm Posse. 3. Burger Bar Boys. 4. Causeway Gang. 5. Edmonton Firm, also known as The Firm. Edmonton Mandem, or EMD. 6. Star Gang. 3. Rivals: Northumberland Park Killers, NPK. 7. Hackney Boys. 7. London Field Boys, LFB. 8. The Tottenham Mandem, also Tottenham Man DEM, TMD, or Man DEM Crew. 9. 10. Formerly known as Frontliners or Tottenham Boys. 11. Were an organised street gang based in Tottenham, North London, that began on the Broadwater Farm estate prior to the Broadwater Farm riot in 1985. One of the early members and later leader, Mark Lambie, was a suspect in the murder of PC Keith Blakelock. During that riot. 12. Lambie had been top of Operation Trident's wanted list due to the close links he had built with gangs in Wembley, Harlesden and South London. 13. He was jailed in 2002. 12. During the 90s, TMD was one of the largest gangs in North London and controlled much of the drug markets in the area. 14. In the early 2000s, members of TMD formed the North Star record label and music group. The group was active in the music scene at the time, and acted as promoters for So Solid Crew. 15. 14. TMD also declined during this period, instead splintering off into various independent groups such as NPK, Northumberland Park Killers. 16. Tiverton Mandem, and Chestnut Estate, CE, also known as Black Gang. 17. Although some still used the Tottenham Mandem name, some younger members of TMD began to associate with the London Bloods, Note 1, and used names such as Ida Boys, also known as Ida Riders, Ida Bloodstars, or Ida. 18, and Bloodline. 19, or Blood Gang. 20, whereas some older members began to use the name Star Gang. 20. Collectively, everyone from the Broadwater Farm estate began to be referred to as Farm Mandem, FMD. 11, 14, 21. Some of these groups, such as Star Gang, 22, became active in the road rap scene at the time. Two members of Star Gang, Heads, now known as Heady One, and Young RV, now known as RV, later became prominent in the UK drill scene and formed part of the UK drill collective OFB, Original Farm Boys. 23, 24, 25. History: Origins, 1970s 90s. TMD, like many other London gangs such as the Peckham Boys and Ghetto Boys, has its origins in the 1970s, and was founded in Broadwater Farm, Tottenham. By the time of the infamous Broadwater Farm riot in 1985, the gang was firmly established in the area. 11, 26, 27. The gang is a derivative of another local gang known as the Broadwater Farm Posse, formed in the 1970s by black British youth of West Indian origins. TMD originally went by the name Frontliners, then later Tottenham Boys, then finally Tottenham Mandem. 11, 28. 1990s, rise of Mark Lambie. By the early 1990s, TMD was one of the largest gangs in North London, controlling many of the drug markets in the area. 14. One leader, 29, 30, of TMD, Mark Lambie, also known as Devil Man, OBM Man, or the Prince of Darkness. 12, 15, was a suspect in the murder of PC Keith Blakelock during the Broadwater Farm riot. 12. Lambie helped forge links and alliances with gangs across London and beyond. In 1991, he was sentenced to 3 + 1 2 years in jail due to involvement in a gang shooting, although this was reduced a year. In 1995, police intelligence reports indicated he had been fraternizing with gang members from Brent and Notting Hill. He also had a feud with Jerome Maddox, who had experienced a drive-by shooting at his home and was murdered a year later in Jamaica. 29. In 1996, police believed Mark and an associate, Clifford Angle, may have been involved in the non-fatal shooting of Kenneth Wow in West London. The following year, 3 gunmen entered a Caribbean restaurant in West London called The Place to Be and asked to see Mark. While it is suspected Mark Lambie was there at the time, he kept quiet if he was. Instead 2 innocent Marks were shot after identifying themselves. 30. Police suspected this may have been an attempted retaliation shooting following the shooting of Kenneth Wow. 6 months later, Kenneth Wow was shot dead. Mark and Clifford were promptly arrested, but let go due to lack of evidence. A few days later, Clifford Angle was shot dead. 29, 31, 26. In 1999, a man was shot in Coliseum nightclub in Vauxhall. The victim named Mark Lambie as the shooter, who was then arrested, but once again was let go after the victim withdrew his evidence. In the same year, police believed he and an associate, Michael Thomas, aka Mallet, had shot at an EQ nightclub in Hackney Marsh. Police suspected this was a form of blackmail. There was a third incident at a Hackney club where Stephen Grant was shot dead. Police suspected this was a part of the TMD and Hackney Boys dispute. Lambie was suspected of being at the club. 29. 1997-2003, Hackney Boys rivalry. From 1997, TMD had a conflict with another local gang known as the Hackney Boys, also known as Hackney Mandem, or HMD. 14, 29, 26. The conflict resulted in a number of tit-for-tat killings. 32, 33. The origins of the feud aren't clear. Winking sad smiley. 15. In the book Guns and Gangs, The Inside Story of the War on Our Streets by Graham McClargen, it is claimed the conflict began when 16-year-old Guidance Dackers was shot dead in 1997 at a Chimes nightclub in Hackney. It was Guidance's first night out at a club ever. Anthony Bourne, member of TMD Allies Edmonton firm, 14, and Fabian Fatinacun were both acquitted of the murder. 29, 34, 35, 15. James Sutherland, however, a former police officer, has stated the death of Guidance was not the cause of the conflict behind TMD and the Hackney Boys and the killings that followed. 35. The conflict may have begun earlier, in 199 and 5/6, when members of TMD robbed youths from Hackney, and one TMD member had stabbed a Hackney Boy member. 14. Either way, a month after the death of Guidance Dackers, members of the Hackney Boys confronted two members of TMD, Clint Ponton, also known as C1 or the Chosen One, 14, 36, later member of North Star, and 16-year-old Kingsley Asara, nicknamed Popcorn, and chased them. Clint escaped, but Kingsley was cornered on a block of flats, beaten, kicked, punched and ultimately shot and killed. Kingsley ultimately bled to death on the roof of the block of flats. 14. Two of the individuals involved in the murder of Kingsley Asara, Meneliek Robinson and Corey Wright, were themselves shot dead soon after they were released from prison in 1999 and 2001 respectively. 29, 14, 37, 38. There was another incident at a Hackney nightclub in 1999 where Stephen Grant was shot dead. Police suspected this was a part of the TMD and Hackney Boys dispute. 2 days later, a Hackney youth was shot at by members of TMD in Southgate. 29. On the 4th of December 2002, TMD member Adrian Crawford, aka Buckhead, 29, was shot dead by Hackney Boys member Daniel Cummings. 39, 40, 41, 42. Adrian had previously been arrested alongside Mark Lambie while visiting an associate in jail. 29. On the 21st of April 2003, Jason Fearon was shot at in a London club. He tried to flee in his Audi, but was shot at again and killed. Police were told this was due to a conflict between TMD and the Hackney Boys. 9, 43, 44. The club was hosting an event at the time for So Solid member Lisa Mafia. Clint Ponton was arrested in connection of the shooting. He denied all the charges, and claimed he was trying to change his life. 45, 46, 47. After beating the case, he came back to the UK and decided to focus on his music group North Star. 48. 2000-2002, fall of Mark Lambie. By 2000, Mark Lambie was considered untouchable by the local black community. Some people in the local community believed he was capable of juju powers and was untouchable due to magic. This earned him the nickname Obeah Man, named after an African spiritual system. 29, 12, 26, 15. He was top of Operation Trident's wanted list due to the close links he had built with gangs in Wembley, Harlesden in Brent, and South London. 13, 29, 26. While Trident struggled to find evidence to convict Lambie, they managed to convict two of his associates, Michael Thomas, aka Mallet, and Rookie Sweeney. 29, 49, in order to prevent his girlfriend from testifying against him, Rookie Sweeney had her shot. She was also shot at while on a visit to Jamaica. Ultimately she survived, and aided police in testifying against Rookie. Rookie was jailed for life for an execution he took part in 1999. 49, 50, police were also struggling because they did not actually know where Mark Lambie was or where he lived, which made traditional methods of gathering information on someone somewhat difficult. Instead, police used similar tactics American police used when going after Al Capone, by going after his associates. Police also found that Mark was living in South London, rather than North as was expected, and that he was using false names, such as Paul Gordon. Eventually they managed to find him and his brother, Wesley Lambie, in a car that was suspected to be stolen, although the owner refused to testify it was. They also found heroin in the car, but were unable to link it to the Lambie brothers. Although they were unable to bring charges, knowing where he was made surveillance now a possibility. 29. In 2002, Mark Lambie and Anthony Blueborn, a member of the North London gang The Firm, were jailed after the kidnapping, blackmailing, and torture of two men, Mr. Smith and Mr. Morris, from Tottenham on the 21st of April, 2001. The police had been following Lambie around Tottenham on the day, and saw him enter and leave Broadwater Estate. It was considered too risky to enter the estate, so they waited outside until Mark left, and followed him to a party. Nothing eventful happened, so they returned to the police station. 29. What they didn't know was that an associate of Mark, Anthony Bourne, had lured two men into Broadwater Estate, where they were kidnapped at gunpoint by at least 14 people. The two men had driven a blue sports car into the estate, which the police had spotted earlier as they were following Mark. The group took the two men into a house, which they burst into, ordering the current occupants, 2 women and 2 children, to move downstairs, and then began to torture the 2 men, demanding money from them both. The house they had entered was the same house the police had seen Mark enter earlier in the day, which the police had interpreted to be a party. 29, 51, 12, 13, 52. The men were hit with hammers, burned with an electric iron, and had boiling water poured onto their genitals. One of the victims, Mr. Smith, was able to escape after suggesting there was money at a nearby salon. He was bundled into a car, and driven to the salon, which was promptly robbed while there. Mr. Smith was secured in the boot of the car. While the suspects were inside the salon, Mr. Smith was able to escape from the car and ran to the nearby police station. After his escape, the gang began to flee. They took Mr. Morris outside but were seen by a passing police car. The gang fled, and Mr. Morris ran towards a police car he had spotted passing by and lunged onto the bonnet asking for help. 51, 12, 13, 52, 29. 2 other members of the gang that were involved in the incident, Warren Leader and Francis Ozier, were also convicted of kidnapping and blackmail. 12, 51. Warren Leader was released in 2009, but in 2013 he was jailed for 16 years for running a heroin factory. 53. In October 2003, Gavin Smith was killed in Lordship Recreation Ground. Mark Duggan, member of TMD offshoot Star Gang, 54, was arrested in suspicion of the murder. 55, 56, he was released without charge however. 57, in March 2004, Marcus Cox, a TMD member, 58, was shot dead on Tottenham High Road. He was shot by Ciaran Martin. The prosecution alleged it was revenge for a robbery that had happened prior. Ciaran alleged that Cox had threatened to kill him if he did not give Cox money. He alleged that he brought a gun and body armor for protection, and on seeing Cox in public, lost his head and shot him. 59. North Star music group not to be confused with North Star, an American hip-hop duo. In 202/3, Clint Ponton traveled to Ayanapa. While there, he met up with Meg Amon from So Solid and became inspired to form his own music group. 60. While still in Ayanapa, both Clint Ponton and Wesley Lambie were allegedly involved in a stabbing incident. The charges were dropped, but they were convicted and fined for carrying knives. 46, 61. On the 21st of April, 2003, Jason Fearon was shot at in a London club. He tried to flee in his Audi, but was shot at again and killed. 9. The club was hosting an event at the time for So Solid member Lisa Mafia. Clint Ponton, also known as C1 or the Chosen One, 36, was arrested in connection of the shooting. He denied all the charges, and claimed he was trying to change his life. 46. Clint Ponton and Wesley Lambie formed a music collective called North Star or North Star. 48. Clint Ponton and Wesley Lambie formed the North Star Music record label, promotion, and production company. The group started putting on UK garage events, and acted as the promoters for UK garage crew So Solid. The group also started booking events for Wiley. 60. Clint has stated the success of So Solid inspired him to refocus on music. 48. 60. The group also became associated with PDC. 14. C1 stated he created it as he wanted to change around his life and move to more legitimate things. 62. 60. North Star had 3 artists that acted as a music group together, C1, China, and Young Spray. 63, 64, 48, together, they were signed to Lisa Mafia's Mafia Records record label. 65, 66, the group went to number 1 on the Channel U charts with the song On a Rise. 67, 68, Young Spray had met C1 when he was 16 while both were in prison. 68. North Star received some resistance from police who shut down their music shows. 48, 60. In 2008, Clint was stabbed in the neck at the Urban Music Awards in what was suspected by police to be a part of a Tottenham gang conflict. 69, 14. Fragmentation and development. The early 2000s saw a decline in TMD. Tottenham became less unified and local independent gangs propped up. Meanwhile, members of North Star pursued their careers in music. Killings also dropped during this period, but the rivalries continued through music with rival groups sending disses towards each other, such as Mashtown from London Fields. 11, 14. Some of the Tottenham split-offs from TMD were Ida Boys, NPK, Northumberland Park Killers, 16, Chestnut Estate, CE, also known as Black Gang, 17, and Tiverton Mandem. Star Gang also formed. During this period, created by older members of TMD. 20, the name Star Gang was allegedly influenced by North Star, the music group set up by former TMD members during the early 2000s. Some of the younger members of TMD had begun to associate with the London Bloods movement and began calling themselves Ida Boys, also known as Ida Riders, Ida Bloodstars, or Ida, 18, Bloodline, 19, or Blood Gang, and BWF, Broadwater Farm. 20. Some groups still referred to themselves as the Tottenham Mandem regardless, but the term no longer referred to a specific gang. 14. Collectively, some of the fragmentations were all known as Farm Mandem, FMD, and they still had links to older TMD members. 14, 21. Some of these groups, such as Star Gang, 22, became active in the road rap scene at the time. 2 members of Star Gang, Heads, now known as Heady One, and Young RV, now known as RV, later became prominent in the UK drill scene and formed part of the UK drill collective OFB, Original Farm Boys. 23, 24, 25. In the mid-late 2000s, members of TMD became associated with the Ghetto Boys, a gang based in South London. Younger members of the Ghetto Boys had formed Shower. Together, members of TMD and the Ghetto Boys called themselves Shower Syndicate. It is alleged the group had links with the Jamaican gang Shower Posse. 70. In 2009, 2 members of TMD were giving life sentences after murdering someone in South London. 71, 27, 72. Late 2000s present NPK/Sin Squad NPK, Northumberland Park Killers, 16, also known as Sin Squad, 73, are a split-off group from TMD located in the Northumberland Park estate of Tottenham. 74, 75, it is identified using the colour purple. 76. In 2007, a fight occurred between members of the NPK and the Shangstars, a gang from neighbouring Edmonton, following an attempted ambush on 2 Shangstars members. The ambush was revenge for the attack of an NPK member at a club in Forest Gate. The fight involved up to 20 people near Hertford Road. In 2009, 6 members of the NPK and 5 members of the Shangstars were sentenced for the fight. 77. In 2009, NPK members were imprisoned for the murder of Gary Guthrie, 78, and ongoing violence between the NPK and the Shankstars, 79, including the attempted murder of Jerome Smallman Bruce DeRouche. 76. In 2011, Bienvenu Vangu, a member of the rival Wood Green Young Guns, attacked two members of NPK with an axe. He would plead guilty to violent disorder, attempted wounding with intent and possession of a sharp-pointed article in a public place, and was sentenced to 6 years in prison, in addition to a 4-year license. 80. 81. In August the same year, Stephen Grisales, an architecture student from Argentina, was stabbed to death by a Kane Williams, a NPK member. 82. Williams would be sentenced to 10 + 1 2 years in prison. Winking sad smiley. 83. Naming restrictions for Williams were lifted in October. 84. His sentence would later be extended to 12 years. 85. In 2014, Corinne Allen was sentenced to 2 years in prison, suspended for 2 years, for driving Jermaine Nimmo, a NPK member, for the purpose of drug dealing. Nimmo was sentenced to 2 years and 9 months for possession with intent to supply. 86. It was also noted in a report by the Integrated Gangs Unit in Haringey that there was increased tensions between the NPK and the farm mandem. 87. On the 3rd of February, 2018, Quabner Nelson, also known as Cobby and a former member of NPK, 88, was stabbed to death by members of the Wood Green Mob, WGM, following them crashing into his car. 89. Neran Quarty would be sentenced to a minimum of 26 years in August for involvement in his death. 90. Some weeks later, on the 8th of March, Kelvin O'Donoghue, also known as Lamps, 75, or Dip That, 91, was shot to death outside the View Cinema in Wood Green. It was assumed that Lamps' death was retaliation for the death of Cobby. 92. 93. As of August 2021, no one has been convicted for Lamps' murder. 94. Roughly 1 month following the death of Lamps, on the 2nd of April, Tanisha Melbourne Blake was shot and killed alongside Chalgrove Road in Tottenham. The shooting was linked to the WGM-NPK conflict, with several posts tagged with #NPK making references to the death of Melbourne Blake. 88, 95, 96. It was alleged that the murder was a revenge attack following a rapper from Wood Green, named Bobby Slater, being attacked at a restaurant in Farringdon. 16. The Sun offered a £50,000 reward for information regarding her killer. 75. In 2020, it was determined that the gun used in Melbourne Blake's murder was used in another murder. 97. In 2020, members of NPK, alongside SJ of OFB, were sentenced to life for the murder of Kamali Gabadon Lynck, also known as K1, 98, and the attempted murder of Jason Fraser, both affiliated with the WGM. 99, 100. The NPK is also associated in the UK drill music scene, with its members having released songs with accompanying music videos. 101. Rappers that go under the Sin Squad, SS, collective include Stewie, Bully B, GP, Unks, KK and LR. 102, 103. OFB main article, OFB, rap group, OFB, Original Farm Boys, is the current gang associated with the Broadwater Farm Estate. They were preceded by Star Gang, a road rap group from the 2000s and offshoot group from TMD which consisted of Heads, now known as Heady One, and Young RV, now known as RV, who later became prominent in the UK drill scene and formed part of the UK drill collective OFB. 23, 24, 25. In 2020, SJ, alongside 4 others, Shireen Cookhorn, Tyrell Trills Graham, Shane Sneaks Lyons, and Aheo Save Hamilton, 104, 100, was given a life sentence with a minimum of 21 years, following a court case at the Old Bailey for the murder of Kamali K1 Gabadon Lynck, 98, in Wood Green. The group was said to be linked to the NPK. 99, in protest of the sentence, Carl Stanberry, an electrician and alleged stepfather of Sneaks, jumped from the public gallery. He would be sentenced to 7 months in jail for doing so. 105. SJ's sentence would later be reduced to a minimum of 19 years in 2021, which was announced via his Instagram account. 106. In 2022, Bunda K, Double LZ and others were charged with violent disorder following a 2021 brawl at a Selfridges store, where 2 people were stabbed. 107. Operation Debiri in January 2014, it was reported that the Metropolitan Police had set up Operation Debris to tackle the TMD. Detective Chief Inspectors Mark Foote stated the gang had 48 of Europe's most dangerous criminals, which he claimed included Mark Duggan. 108. 2. The operation, live since November 2008, 2, saw police conducting a confidential covert proactive operation in a bid to arrest the most senior members of a gang whose line of business involved the supply of Class A drugs, firearms, kidnapping, blackmail and grievous bodily harm. Citation needed. In 2011, the TMD ranked second on the Met's organized crime network matrix, making them the second most harmful gang in the capital. Citation needed. TMD members and their associates are regularly attending nightclubs and parties in the London area, and when doing so have firearms either on their person or nearby with their associates. A police report from the 25th of July 2011 said. Citation needed. Mark Duggan main article, Death of Mark Duggan in August 2011. Mark Duggan, a 29-year-old Tottenham resident, was shot and killed by the Metropolitan Police in Tottenham, North London. Officers were attempting to arrest Duggan, who was suspected to be carrying a gun. The circumstances of Duggan's killing resulted in public protests in Tottenham that were widely seen as the proximate cause of the 2011 England riots. During the inquiry into his killing, police claimed that he was a member of the Tottenham Mandem. 109. Notes some gangs during the 2000s took on Bloods names and imagery in the UK, but they were not officially associated with the American Bloods gangs from which they took inspiration. That's not even half the story. If like and wanna know more, then please like, share and subscribe to our channel. You can also donate to our channel through Cash App at #JesusUzak. Next week on the channel we'll be discussing where North Start /TMD/Shower Posse are now. We be talk about Big Nazit and his connection to these North London gangsters, Obia aka Kevin Legand and Nathan Brown aka Culprit and Andy Nelson relationship with Ed Sheeran, and the question is, do you think Ed is in any danger? Please let me know in the comments down below.